Hi everyone, welcome back to Homeschool Peace. I'm Cassandra. It's crazy to think, but Christmas is going to be here before we know it. And so I wanted to share with you what I'm going to be using with my kids for this upcoming Christmas season. I'm going to be using the brand new unit from Gather Round. It is called Christmas Around the World. I am so excited for this unit. I've been looking through everything and it is just amazing. So I'm going to be sharing with you the teacher guide as well as the 3 different student level books that I have for my students. This program can be for anyone from like your pre-K, kindergarten, the whole way up to high school. There's individual books for each student, but you get to teach them all sort of that one-room schoolhouse approach. As well as I picked up some of their extra stuff, which I'll get to share with you. I picked up their ornament pack, as well as this letter kit. This letter kit is so cool. Can't wait to share this with you. And the last thing I grabbed was their cookbook. It's an extended cookbook for the lessons from different countries around the world. So if you are thinking about doing something special with your kids this holiday season during your homeschooling, this might be it. So I can't wait to share this unit with you. Christmas Around the World is one of Gather Round's mini units. You do not have to be using all of Gather Round's curriculum to add this into your homeschool day. You can choose to how you want to add it in. You can make it really simple and just get the teacher manual and one of the student workbooks based on what your student level is. And that's all you really need to do. Each of the lessons, there's 12 of them in this book, explore a different country. So you'll be going through 12 different countries from around the world, learning about what their traditions and customs are for the holiday season. With this, there's obviously a little bit of geography mixed in, as well as the student workbook has handwriting activities, coloring, lots of really fun things built in that is all based on the different countries you're learning about. There is a recommended book list, so you can spend some time reading some books as well with your students about those different countries. But if you really are just trying to add something simple, just the teacher guide and just the student workbook. I chose to add more. They had the extras like the recipe book, the ornaments, as well as these letters that you can kick off each country with. I wanted to add more because I really wanted to make Christmas a little extra special for my kids this year. We've been really working hard on our curriculum, and I actually plan to sort of shelf a little bit of our core curriculum. I obviously won't abandon it all, but I will put it away for a little bit and focus more on this for the 3 weeks leading up to Christmas. With the 12 lessons, you really sort of pick and choose how you want to add them into your day. You could do 4 lessons a week and for 3 weeks. On Fridays, we have a lot of times our field trips or co-ops, so that really works well for our schedule, which is probably what I'm going to be doing. Or you could do just like every other day or a couple days a week and fit it in throughout the whole holiday season. It's whatever works for your family, but it's 12 lessons exploring 12 different countries. If you visit my channel frequently, you'll know that I really love Christmas time. And for the past actually 4 years, I've used a program called The Truth in the Tinsel. If you have watched that video, which I do have the video linked below, it is a great program. I love The Truth in the Tinsel. And if you are looking for a Christmas program, that's still a great one to check out. The only reason that I'm doing something different this holiday season is because I've done The Truth in the Tinsel 4 years in a row. My kids have gotten to the point that they do almost expect it. It's almost like their tradition, which I really appreciate. But as the teacher, I would like something new to teach and just something different to show them for the holidays. So we're going to try this season and see how that works out. Because they're used to The Truth in the Tinsel having special ornaments, because that's part of the program for The Truth in the Tinsel, that is definitely why I picked up this ornament pack. They get to make 1 ornament for each of the countries that they explore. So there's 12 different ornaments. So even though my kids are a little bit on the younger side and these ornaments are a little bit tricky for those younger kids, I'm still doing it anyways, no matter how we make them and form them together, because my kids are just so used to doing ornaments around the holiday season. And then the extra stuff, I just want to be able to add a little bit more into our day and really make the holidays fun. So I'm going to jump into the teacher manual, flip through it, and show you some of the information from the lessons so you get a feel for what's included in one of the lessons. So opening up the teacher manual, there is a short letter that really talks about this program. One of the things is their original program of Gather Around that they had, their first Christmas unit, was called First Christmas. In that unit, it goes through in a lot of detail the story of Jesus and his birth. They really stayed away from talking about Santa, other myths, and other cultures. It was really just focused on the Bible story. For this unit, it's completely different. They really did not shy away from talking about Santa or myths. It's all built in. It's something that when you talk about a different country, it does have call outs of where there's maybe some myth points that you have to decide if you really want to bring that up to your kids or not. But if you are interested in really sharing with your kids about other countries and cultures and what their beliefs are, this is really great because it brings that all into the material. If you are still, though, looking for something that ties back to the Bible, that's what's really cool about the lessons. At the end of each lesson, it all ties back to Jesus and his birth story and the true meaning of Christmas. I would recommend this material more for a faith-based family. If that's something that's not really your family, or you really just don't like to tie that into your material, you probably could go through it and try to jump over some of the areas, but it might be a little bit difficult. So I would probably highly recommend it more for a faith-based family. Going into the next page is the table of contents, and you can see here the countries that you will be studying with your kids. Iceland, New Zealand, Brazil, Germany, Philippines, Israel, Sweden, Spain, Uganda, Ukraine, Switzerland, and North America. So with those 12 lessons, my family, I'll be breaking those up over those 3 weeks. So the first week I'll end up doing lessons 1 through 4. So one lesson a day will be how I'll be going through it for 12 days leading up till Christmas. So now let's take a look at that first lesson about Iceland. The very first lesson is on the country of Iceland. Now, if I look ahead in the teacher manual, you can see that each of these lessons covers over 4 teacher pages. So there's only 4 pages for each country. So that's not a ton of reading. So if you have a limited amount of time that you can really spend on Christmas, you could always read those 4 pages. Then at the end, it has the specific pages from the student book that they're supposed to complete. And so you can have your student pull out their student workbook, complete those pages, and then you can end the lesson there. Now, if you're looking to really add more to your lessons and make it more of a robust Christmas program, they also have a recommended book list. And I have the link below. It's a list that Gather Round put together per each of these countries. And it's broken down by, say, your older students, middle school, high school, maybe if you have younger readers. And some of the books could be that they could read on their own if they're older, or if they're younger, maybe you could read to them. So it's say maybe about the country of Iceland, or something about their traditions or customs. And so there's some additional reading that you can do after you finish these 4 pages and you sort of bring in the country to your students. You can then have them read more about that country. And so that's a great way to add more to your lessons. Now, to kick off one of these lessons, so for the country of Iceland, what I picked up was Letters Around the World. Now, this box set I ordered from Gather Round, and what's really cool is they have a letter for each country. So there's 12 letters, and the letter is written from the perspective of a child who is in that country writing a letter to my kids. And so at the top it says, "Dear blank." And so at that point I would write my kids' names in there. I'd fold it. I'd put it in one of these nice envelopes. There's these fun little stickers that I can put on the back. Now, I could hide the letter somewhere around my house, make my kids try to find it, or maybe I have a special Christmas basket or box or mailbox type thing that I can put the letter in. And every day when they start the lesson, they can pull out the letter. And then we plan to read the letter aloud as just sort of a great way to introduce that country to my kids. After we read this letter, I'll go into my actual teacher manual and start through the information. The first page is more about the country and some facts about Iceland. So I would read that aloud to my kids. I might even pull out my globe or world map, have them identify where Iceland is. And then on the next page, it's about looking back and preparation. So this is more about the Christmas holiday, the history of the Christmas holiday, and some of the traditions that they have in Iceland. So I would go ahead and read that aloud to my students. The next page is where we have Myth Alert. Now, this is what I was mentioning earlier. If you have those younger students that you don't want to read some of these traditions or myths, you can choose what you want to read and not. So you might want to pre-read that and decide for yourself. I plan to read it aloud to my kids because I want them to really understand what other countries believe and how they celebrate the holidays. The next section is called The Big Day. So the big day is how, the day of Christmas, what do they actually do? What's really awesome in each of these lessons, they focus on one food that's special or unique to that country. So this is a type of, they call it a leaf bread, that's part of Icelandic tradition, and it almost looks like a really cool snowflake design. And so you would read about this, and also then obviously some of their traditions that you do at Christmas. And then, you know, if you want to, you could just search for this particular item online and find a recipe for it, and then you can make it with your family. If not, you can actually pick up the recipes around the World Cookbook. Now, I grabbed this one. I just thought it would be really great and easy for me to be able to tie this back together, and it really is. So it's broken down by each country. I can see the recipe. There's actually 2 recipes for each country. The one that they have listed here that's highlighted, as well as a bonus recipe for each country. So I can go in this more detail and show you some insides of the cookbook after we get through some of the lesson material. At the end, you can see, what does the Bible say? So this is the part of looking at the Christmas story, the true reason for the season, and talking about Jesus' birth. And so each of these lessons end by taking the student back and talking about what we believe and what does the Bible say. At the bottom, you'll see where it says Day at a Glance, Lesson 1, and it has 3 different pages that they're supposed to complete in this student workbook. So let's go ahead and take a look at the workbook pages. For my students, I picked up 3 different workbooks. I have a kindergarten, a 1st grader, and a 3rd grade student. For my kindergarten student, I grabbed the pre-reader. She's starting to read some, but I really thought that this was the best level for her. The early reader is for my 1st grader, and my early elementary school book is obviously for my 3rd grade student. So it says to go to the page 1 for the world tour. So this is the very first page for Iceland. And so I can show you sort of a comparison of the 3 books that I have. Now, I don't have like the middle school or the high school books, which would obviously even be more advanced as you keep going up, but it can still give you a good idea how, if you have kids at different levels, how you can teach the same lesson, but their pages are just a little bit different. And I really like how the information is just a little bit harder for each kid. So for my younger student, we see here that we have the flag of Iceland. They have, it's already labeled. There's an area where they can trace, and then they're going to make their own leaf bread pattern. And then they have an area where it says, draw a picture of your favorite shoe on the windowsill. So something very simple for my kindergarten student. This is perfect for her age. For my 1st grade student, it goes into sort of a next level. So now we still have the flag. It still looks the same, which I know my kids love to compare their stuff. So I like that it's so similar that they know they're working on almost the same information. It has an area where they want you, it's in the back of the book. There's these little tiny country names that they can cut out and use a glue stick and glue right on. And that's right in the back, the appendix of this student book. And then here they're still going to be drawing their leaf bread pattern that looks almost like the snowflake design. They're still tracing at this point. But then down here there's a spot where they can actually write or dictate an Icelandic tradition. So just a couple words regarding one of the traditions. And then they can also draw a picture. On my 3rd grader's book, a little bit more advanced, he instead will be actually writing out the country of Iceland. He will be writing out leaf bread as well as drawing his picture. There's some little bit information from the copy, the Christmas greeting, as well as a small Venn diagram that he'll fill out. So for this one, just a little bit more advanced. Now, my 3rd grader could have maybe even done the next level up, but honestly, for the Christmas time, I just wanted something fun. I didn't want it to be too much work either, so that's why I went with this level for him. So when you complete that, the next thing on the list, it says, potato or candy. Students will recreate the Icelandic shoe tradition using one of the options given of their choices. Now, this next page is actually the same for all 3 of my student books. And so as a family, we'll decide how we want to recreate this tradition. And so we would go and actually pause the lesson, actually do this together. When we're done doing that page, the next one said book flood. Students will participate in their own book flood. They'll choose the name of a family member to give a book to, decorate wrapping paper, and wrap their book, and have a family book flood. That is the next page that's on this side, and all 3 of the pages are the same. Now, this is not the same for every single country. They're not always the exact same page. Sometimes maybe it's like 2 pages are a little bit different, but you can see how you have a different level per each kid. So because of that, I just wanted to jump to a different page to show you that I thought really gave a good idea. It's on page 23 of this book. So page 23 is actually about Sweden. And then if I look here, my youngest student is just doing some coloring. They're doing some tracing and then a coloring of the Swedish traditional goat. On this one, now my student has a little bit more. Write, draw, or dictate one of the traditions you learned from today's lesson. There's labeling that they'll do with the sticking on, and then they actually need to then write the tradition out down here. And then this is then my third grader's book. Instead of having where he can cut and stick, he is then writing out the country name. And then he also has the compare the Swedish tradition with one of your Christmas traditions, fill the diagram with drawings or notes. So he has an extra activity that the other two did not have. When I flip to page 24, so that would be the next page of the Sweden lesson, again, you're just going to see this one's a good example of just how it increases just in the difficulty as you go up the level. So here, my youngest student is going to, it's the instruction, an exciting and sneaky tradition. See if you can pull off one of these traditions. And so here's what they made. Draw a picture of your gift below and then circle your result. So something very simple, some drawing that they're going to do. Then for my next student, she's going to be then, who was it for? She's going to be writing it out. Draw or write or dictate the answer. And then, did you get caught? Circle your answer. So a little bit more to this one. And this one, we have, again, a little bit more like the my middle child, but a little bit more information. But now we have an extra piece. What did you make? Where did you leave it? And then did you get caught? So just like, again, one step up in ability. So I think this is going to just work really great for my students as we go through this. Now, after we finish this part of the lesson, the next thing I want to share with you is the Christmas ornaments. These Christmas ornaments are also an additional thing to add to the lesson. So for my lessons, again, I want to really have a great time dedicated to talking about this country. We'll go through that full lesson. We'll read a few additional books. My students will do those 3 pages. And then the last thing for the lesson that I have for at least their time that they'd be at table time is working on an ornament. So these ornaments, if you look at the Gather Round site, they recommend this more for the older students. Now with my kindergarten student, she is going to need me to cut this out for her, and she is really going to need help with building it. Coloring it, she'll have a lot of fun coloring it. And probably my first grader might be the same way. I'm definitely going to be using some glue dots and also the double-sided sticky tape to help build these. And they make, basically when you're done cutting these all, they make a cube. And they're different pictures regarding the lesson that you just learned about with Iceland. So I'll have my kids do that and we'll do that together. Again, the reason I chose to do these ornaments, even though my kids are really young, is my kids expect an ornament as part of their lessons for Christmas, because we've done this with our other program that we did at Christmas time 4 years in a row. So they definitely get excited about making an ornament for Christmas time, and so that's why I definitely added these in. I'm not quite sure how this will look for my kindergarten student, but we're going to give it a go and see what happens, and I think this will be a great way to end that portion of our lesson. The last thing I wanted to share is the Christmas Around the World Cookbook. So in each of the lessons, I shared how it highlights a certain recipe. And you could obviously look up that recipe on your own and get the information. But right here, I can go right to a supply list for each week, a grocery list that I can make sure I get everything I need and have on hand. And right here is the leaf bread that we just learned about during our lesson, and it has the instructions of how to make it. So I plan to do at least one recipe for each country. When we finish that table time, we'll go then and then make this recipe together. And this will be such a great time as a family, learning about a different culture, as well as just like something really cool and different to do during our school day. There is a second recipe for this country. We have caramelized potatoes, and so this could be something that I could add to my dinner for the day and be able to highlight this as part if I want to include it. We'll have to just see how all the recipes work and how everything comes together. They even recommended that some families might choose to use some of these multiple countries as a big feast. So maybe once a week for those 3 weeks that you're working on it, you could have a feast from some of the foods from some of the different countries that you've just learned about. But this cookbook is definitely a little addition and a part of our lessons. I'm really excited to start using this material with my students. If you do not have the time to add everything that I shared today, pick and choose what works best for your family and only do what fits into your holiday schedule. Now, if you're looking at how to order this material, I have the link below to the Gather Round site. if you're on their site, make sure you're aware of their turnaround times for shipping of physical material. So I live in the United States and this company is in Canada. And so it did take me about 2 weeks to get my material because it had to ship from Canada. So if you are thinking ahead and trying to plan this out, maybe you plan that you do some of these lessons into the end of December, early January. I think that fits really still great around the holiday season if you really want that physical material. If you are looking to get the material right now and you don't want to have any delays, you can also order it as a PDF. So you can, for your teacher manual, you could have the teacher guide PDF right on your laptop or a tablet, and you can read right from there versus having the physical copy. And then for your student books, you could have the PDFs and you could print them up on your home printer. So those are some great options if you really want to make sure you have the material to start for your holiday season. If you have any questions with what I shared, please leave those questions or even comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And before you leave, don't forget to hit that like and the subscribe, and I will talk to you soon. Goodbye.